Assalamu alaikum. This video actually we carry out or we carry on our discussion on the steps needed to implement error analysis. Okay, so in the last video we talked about data collection, identification of errors, and description of errors. In this video we come to the fourth and normally the final step in error analysis, which is explanation of errors. Explanation of errors requires the researcher to determine the sources of errors and explain them, why errors are actually made. Okay, so error analysis, as we said before, looks at all possible sources of errors. According to Richard, two main sources of errors are actually identified. The first source is called interlingual errors. Interlingual errors refer to errors ascribed to interference from native language of the participants. Okay, so if the learner acquires a second language, for example, the second language is English language, while his first language is Arabic, so it's expected that those learners make errors that can be traced back or attributable to their native language. And normally language learners fall back on the knowledge of their native language due to ignorance of second language rules or lack of knowledge of the second language. So that's why they in order to fill gaps in their communication and to deliver their message to the addressee, they actually fall back to their native language or borrow sometimes structured words, linguistic items from their first language and putting them into the context of the second language in the actual use. While the second type of errors is called intralingual errors. Intralingual errors normally result from difficulty of the second language itself rather than interference from the first language. So it is L2 based errors. Okay, actually can be ascribed to the fact that of that language learners actually still develop the system of the second language. So that's why they are called developmental errors. So once language learner passes from one stage into another in the course of learning a second language, okay, it's expected that those learners make errors, and those errors result from developing or moving from one language system to another. So for some linguists and researchers, they are not actual errors, but they are resulting from the attempt of language learners to develop the system of the second language once moving from one stage to another. Okay, this stage also, which is explaining the sources of errors or errors explanation, requires language learner to identify different types of intralingual errors, those resulting from difficulty of the language itself, of the second language itself. So the researcher is required to take one further step by dividing intralingual errors into four main types. The first type, whether those intralingual errors result from overgeneralization or ignorance of rule restriction or incomplete application of rules, and finally false concept hypothesized. Okay, يعطيك العافية.